About 1 year ago, I quit my job without another one lined up. I left a job in a company of over 10 years. I was well established in my career, and I likely could have found another job in my field in a short period of time. But that's not what I wanted. I didn't really know what to expect when I left my job, but I knew I needed a break. So that's what I decided to do. I decided to quit my job for an undetermined amount of time to recover from burnout and give myself the opportunity to try something new. A couple of weeks ago marked the 1 year anniversary of me leaving my job. And despite what others have suggested, I have not found another job. And this past year has been one of the most transformative years in my life, where I've learned a lot about myself and my relationship with work and money. So in this video, I want to share the 5 things I've learned in the past year from not having a job. And if you stick around to the end, I'll also share what I've been up to and my plans moving forward. So let's get into it. The first thing that I learned from the past year is that burnout is real. Before quitting my job, I worked for the company for over 10 years. I knew I wanted and needed a break, but I never would have admitted to being burned out. I actually met up with a former coworker a few weeks ago, and she was so surprised that I was burned out. I guess I hid it well. Prior to leaving my job, I just powered through those weeks when things got really busy. And once I stopped working, it was like the exhaustion from the past 10 years caught up with me all at once. Once I jumped off the treadmill of working, it no joke took me 2 months of doing nothing to even want to do something productive. Those first 2 months were spent sleeping, traveling, and decompressing. And I know it was 2 months because exactly 2 months to the day after leaving my job, I finally pulled the trigger on starting this YouTube channel. I had been thinking about starting YouTube for a few years prior to this, but I didn't really have the energy to do it. I think it can be really difficult to try something new or to start a new side hustle when you're burned out and are trying to stay afloat. But even when I started this YouTube thing, it was part-time and continue this way for probably another 6 months. Combined with the 2 months of rest and recovery, this would be about 8 months after leaving my job before I wanted to commit to something more than 10 to 15 hours a week. Everyone's experience is different, but one thing I've learned from this past year is that burnout is real. You can deny it or even ignore it for a period of time, but eventually it will catch up to you. The second thing that I've learned in the past year is just how much security and comfort I felt from the income that my job provided, and realizing that you don't need to earn as much money as you think. Psychologically, the income from my day job provided a huge sense of relief and peace of mind knowing that I had steady income coming in. It gave me the freedom to buy things without really thinking twice about it. And while a steady paycheck is not necessarily a bad thing, I've since realized that I failed to understand the freedom and security that we already have from building wealth over the past 15 years. It's not that I was ignoring the wealth that we've been building, it didn't catch me by surprise, but I didn't fully appreciate the freedom and security that it already provides. It's actually pretty ironic that saving more money to give yourself a larger cushion can sometimes make it harder to step away, because that transition from saving to spending down that fund is a really hard transition. I actually remember this really critical inflection point last year that made me realize how much I didn't appreciate the freedom I already had, and how much fear was controlling me. After leaving my day job, we embarked on an epic journey in our camper van. A few months after leaving our trip and starting the YouTube channel, we stopped in Cincinnati to do an interview with Diana Miriam, the founder of the Economy Conference. We released that interview last year, and I'll link to that video somewhere up here if you want to watch it after this video. In that interview, there was this one line that really spoke to me. I'll include a clip of the interview here because it was so powerful. Here's what Diana said.
And one of the things that really stands out to me is I'm like surrounded by millionaires that are looking at their bank accounts and all they feel is fear. And that is, I think, has been really impactful to me, because I think when you put so much work and intention around being responsible with your money, if you don't look at your net worth, and feel a sense of peace, then what's the point?
When she said this, I remember feeling goosebumps and feeling like she was talking directly to me. Here we were millionaires, and I too was still coming to grips with living without a steady paycheck. I too had so much fear and doubt, despite the wealth that we had already built. Over the course of the year, I've come to learn that you don't need to earn as much money as you think. We live in a society that constantly tells us to earn more and to work towards that next promotion. And so when we deviate from that path, it feels like we've done something wrong. Instead, because we've accumulated so much wealth, it means that we can leverage that wealth to make intentional lifestyle changes now. And the reality is, I don't have to work full time because we already have our future retirement already funded. All we have to do is cover our living expenses, and we can do that on a part-time basis. And if we struggle to generate income as we pursue entrepreneurship, we can also use some of our assets to cover our living expenses in the short term. Going a full year without a paycheck helped me realize that we can survive and even thrive on so much less. And that freedom and flexibility allows me to prioritize my time differently. Instead of feeling stuck trying to chase the next promotion or find a higher paying job, I can prioritize activities that I enjoy and pursue hobbies that bring me joy and satisfaction. I'm not exactly sure who needs to hear this, but it felt so important to include it. And I'll say it one more time. You don't need to earn as much money as you think you do. If you're making key decisions in your life solely based on how much income you earn, odds are that it will eventually backfire. You may end up in a job that you hate, or doing work that you no longer enjoy, or missing out on life just to chase that next promotion. The next thing I've learned from this past year is that it takes time to work through fears of scarcity. If you were to follow my personal social media accounts, you would think that the past year has been one big epic adventure. And while this is true, it's also been filled with moments of strong fears of scarcity. Most people probably wouldn't admit this, but that's not what we're about on this channel. I remember several distinct moments throughout the past year when I've been worried about money and had feelings like I needed to find some sort of job or create some sort of steady income. Usually there was a specific thing that would trigger these intense moments of scarcity. And the triggers would change slightly throughout the year, so it wasn't just one thing. But I do remember a particular moment when we realized we would make at least $10,000 less than we had originally projected from the business. And to make matters worse, we realized this just a couple of weeks after we decided to spend several $1,000s to buy e-bikes, which was an unplanned discretionary purchase. At the time, we had the savings and everything was going pretty well with the business, so we didn't even hesitate to pull the trigger on the e-bikes because it would enhance our experience while traveling in the van. But then when we realized our income would be less, it made me partially regret the bike purchase, at least for a moment. Proximity of these two events pushed me to think about the potential worst case scenario, that we would spend down all of our savings and I would be forced to find a quick way to generate revenue. I've been fortunate that it's only been a few instances, but they are very real. Usually what helped me work through it was talking through it with Jess and close friends, reminding myself that I have other safety nets, and perhaps most importantly, reminding myself that I am a resourceful problem solver. If problems arise, I'll be able to figure out a way to work through them, whether that means finding ways to earn extra income or something else. These moments of fear and doubt now happen less often, and I'm finally feeling more at peace about our finances than I ever have. Even though we are earning less than we have in over a decade. It takes time to train your mind to see abundance and potential instead of scarcity or limitations. And it feels important to give yourself space to work through it. One of the more challenging things in the past year was not having a clear plan. I ended up leaving my job a little earlier than I had originally expected, and with that timing, it brought some uncertainty. I honestly wasn't sure what I would do next. My friends and family would occasionally ask me what I was planning, and it was so hard not having answers. When I left my job, it was a lot easier and cleaner to say that I was planning to help my wife with the business. It was true after all, but it was largely driven by the need to have some sort of clear story or plan. And if I'm being really honest, there's still some uncertainty. Right now, Jess and I are embracing a coast-fi lifestyle, meaning that we've saved and invested enough that we only need to cover our expenses. As I shared in this video, we stopped investing for retirement last year. And this has taken a lot of pressure off to earn as much money as possible. But it still comes with the requirement that we cover our expenses. We should be able to do that through self-employment, but you never know what the future will hold. Right after I left my job, this uncertainty and the lack of having a plan was so much harder to live with. I think part of it was just that I was always an overachiever or a high performer, and very much a planner. And I think not having a plan can be very difficult for those type of individuals. I know it's true for myself. Over the course of the past year, I've had the opportunity to talk to many others who have left their job either to pursue a hobby business or self-employment or some sort of semi-retirement. And that thing I've heard multiple times is they've all told themselves one thing just to justify the change or break, like they were doing some sort of mental gymnastics to be able to make a huge change. Like Diana Miriam, who I mentioned earlier, has repeatedly said that she told herself that if she didn't replace her income in a certain number of months, she would go and find another job. And the funny thing is that she hasn't yet replaced her income. And it's been so much longer than she initially told herself. And she has realized that she no longer needs to replace her income because of the freedom that she's built. But it was the thing she needed to tell herself to build up the courage to make a change. While I am still a person that enjoys having a plan, I like to think I'm a little bit better at living without one. And you know what else I enjoy more than having a plan? You hitting that like button. Okay, that may not be true, but it's the best transition I could come up with. So if you are getting value from this video, please consider letting me know by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. Both of those things go a long way to helping us reach more people. And last but certainly not least, of the things I've learned over the past year is that it's important to have people who understand you and to whom you can relate. We're very fortunate to have a great group of friends near us, and my friends have been incredibly supportive. But the path I opted into when I quit my job was and is so different from what they were used to. I think sometimes it can be really hard to make a change, especially a big change if you haven't seen anyone else do something similar. A couple of weeks after leaving my job, we went to the Economy Conference in Cincinnati. It's a conference for those pursuing financial independence. And because it was so close to my work departure and I was still processing this change, I didn't really want to be mingling or chatting with other people and having to explain that I didn't have a job. But what I found was a ton of supportive people who could also relate to me. So many others had similar stories. And being able to have real conversations with people who have been there was so great. Instead of judgment or projected fears, I received so much encouragement and excitement from people I literally just met. And it's amazing how much an impact this had to help me embrace this new lifestyle. This past year has taught me the value of having people in your life who can relate to you. That's not to say those closest to you all have to have the same background or share all of the same interests. But there is value in having people who can relate and support you through those challenging moments. And that can come in many different shapes and sizes. It may be a friend that lives a few thousand miles away, but with whom you chat almost every day. Or it could be someone you see once a year. Or it could be an online community or Facebook group. If you haven't stopped to think about who you were spending your time with, it may be worth stopping and giving it some attention. Surrounding yourself with people making lifestyle changes that you aspire to make can help give you confidence to make those changes. If you don't know where to start, consider joining our private Facebook group called Slow-Fi Enthusiast. Over the past few years, we've cultivated an amazing group of people who continue to inspire and challenge us to live life to its fullest. I'll include a link to the Facebook group in the description below. As I look back on the past year, I'm so glad that I made the change. I still have no plans to find another traditional job, and my new goal is to grow this YouTube channel to reach even more people, while also creating a life that I truly enjoy. This past year has taught me so much about myself, including that I can do hard things. But that doesn't mean it's any easier. Making big lifestyle changes like the one I've made is incredibly difficult. If you're looking to make a similar change, you should check out this video on lifestyle design. In this video, we walk you through our 3-step process on how to try new things and ultimately build the life you want. As always, thanks for watching and enjoy the journey.